Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We're gathered today on the 29th of November, 2025, which happens to line up with the 21st of the ninth month on our Creator's calendar as we comprehend it. And we're currently continuing our reading of Bemidbar, or the Book of Numbers, chapter 32. And this is covering the Reubenites and the Gadites sue for their inheritance on that side of the Yarden or the Jordan. Moshe reproves them. They offer him conditions to his content rather, and Moshe assigns them the land and they conquer it. Now, we've talked about this a little bit before, but I'll mention it just one more time here. Everything that's in the narration that happened with our forefathers is also a parable of later events because the word always speaks in parables. And we've given the example with the three patriarchs are like the three ages. Abraham's sojourning was like the children before they were given the land. Yitzhak was like the promised seed in the land that was not taken out. And Yaakov was like the time after the Messianic period where they went out to go labor for his wife and possessions before returning to keep his vow. Those are explained in a few different places, but there's other things that are represented in those types of parables as well. When the sons sell Yaakov, or not Yaakov, Yahusif into captivity, and then he's brought into slavery in Egypt and then exalted to serve the Pharaoh and become second in command to him over all the people and to be used by him to secure all the wealth and people for Pharaoh is a type of things that would happen later on, right? In the same way, this is too. And I'd hope that you'd be able to see that there's a portion of the people who are separated by a body of water, and the ones on this side had certain elements to them that are prophetic. If you think about America, Canada, and South America, where you'd have Reuben, who was from France that came to Canada, and then you have Manasseh, the half tribe in America, and then you have, which this isn't novel information. There's many people that write books about it or have, and they still talk about it even today. But and then Gad would have been from South America, which we can have information from as far back as the Book of Tay Taffy, the Irish bard songs that collected that told the story of Yirmiyahu taking the daughter of Zadik Yahu from the land there to Egypt, and then from Egypt over to Ireland eventually. It, while they're in Spain, there's some Gadites there, and he's mentioning South America as a place they've been to by then, and he wanted to travel again. So already at that time, if you recall, around 500s BC, that would have been half a century almost after the time of Shalomo, when they had a worldwide trade network with the Phoenicians, if you want to call them that, and they were already going to the Americas and going over to the Philippines. They had made circuits around circumnavigated the earth, if you will, the waters around it, and went back there on a 3-year journey, as it talks about. Excuse me. So either way, you have information about these people being in these areas. Um, Reuben lost his firstborn inheritance to Yahusif, and then that was given, the birthright was given to Ephraim, in the same way that France lost its dominion to Britain. It was a type that was accomplished later on as well. So, ob willing, the more that you see the things in the word here and you learn about the history of the things that have happened later on, you can see the patterns there because it happens all the time. And it even goes beyond scripture. When you study the Antichrist for Dummies, and I really recommend you do that, look at the response of Yahuwah against chastising the Byzantines for the army and what they did. He sent the Mongol hordes after them with their long-haired horses like a mockery of what they worship. Okay? And that's all scripture. When you get to the Reformation times and you have Martin Luther and Johann Calvin, they're a type, an embodiment of the the Reformation in Germany and Britain, respectively. And what happens with the one where he turns against the Yahudim and then later capitulates to the Christ Mass again, not maybe the keeping of it, but consenting to some observance. You have later on the Reformation in Europe and Germany specifically, recapitulating for those things and turning backwards and then persecuting the Yahudim, right? A type that happened later on. And in the same way, you have Johann Calvin and the things that he was teaching in Britain, where he later burned a heretic, quote unquote, for believing or for not believing in the Trinity. So, and you had the burnings and things that were going on there. It's a type and picture. My point is, you can see the thing that happened also happening later on in a larger scale in the very same way it happens in scripture, because that's how the truth plays out. This is the pattern he tries to show us. And you can actually see that plainly talked about in the recognitions of Clement by Clement when he's speaking with Kepha about looking to the things that have been to know the end of them. But let's go ahead and continue here. This is chapter 32, verse 1. It says, And the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had a multitude of cattle, very great, and they saw the land of Yazer, and the land of Gilead, or Galaad, and the place was a place for cattle. And the children of Reuben and the children of Gad came and spoke to Moshe and to Eleazar the Kohen and to the princes of the congregation, saying, Adaroth and Dibon and Yazir and Namra and Heshbon and Eliel and Shebama and Nebu and Bein, the land which Yahuwah has delivered up before the children of Israel is pasture land, and your servants have cattle. And they said, If we have found favor in your sight, let this land be given to your servants for a possession, and do not cause us to pass over Yarden. And Moshe said to the sons of Gad and the sons of Reuben, Shall your brethren go to war, and shall you sit here? And why do you pervert the minds of the children of Israel, that they should not cross over into the land which Yahuwah gives them? Did not your fathers thus, when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land? And and they went up to the valley of the cluster and spied the land, and they turned aside the heart of the children of Israel, that they should not go into the land which Yahuwah gave them. And Yahuwah was very angry in that day, and sware, saying, Surely these men who have came up out of Mitzrayim from 20 years old and upward, who know good and evil, shall not see the land which I swear to Abraham and Yitzchak and Jacob, for they have not for they have not closely followed after Yahuwah. And Yahuwah was very angry with Yisrael, and for 40 years he caused them to wander in the wilderness, until all the generation which did evil in the sight of Yahuwah was extinct. And this is a part that we don't see as clearly as I think we ought to. But when they were in the wilderness after that time, you never once have a reference. We've already read Genesis, Exodus. We're going to go through Deuteronomy, and we are currently reading Numbers. You don't find any mention of them after their wilderness journey keeping the festivals. It isn't until after the 40 years when he brings the children, the uncircumcised ones, into the land, that they're circumcised and they keep the feast again. Now, that is another inversion of what we are to do today, because we were divorced, the northern kingdom, and cast away. And when Yahushua came, he died to re-covenant and to reintroduce the northern kingdom back into the covenant, of which the invitation went out. And those that partook became believers, re re-covenanted with him with the renewed covenant. They all had assemblies all over the world, and then they were systematically cut off from life by Rome. And they killed the body of the truth in the world, just like his body was killed by them physically when he was here as a representation. And all of this is in the Antichrist for Dummies videos, the history of it, what actually happened, sources that you can go look at for that as well. There's other ways you can see it as well, but those videos really cover very important information that we ought to be looking at in regard to the book of Revelation. Most of what we have been taught is Jesuit usurpation for the truth, but that's for a different time. It says, "Behold, you are risen up in the room of your fathers, a combination of sinful men, to increase yet further the fierce wrath of Yahuwah against Israel. For you will turn away from him to desert him or yet once more in the wilderness, and you will sin against this whole congregation." And they came to him and said, "We will build here folds for our cattle, and cities for our possessions, and we will arm ourselves and go as an advanced guard before the children of Israel, until we shall have brought them into their place. And our possessions shall remain in walled cities because of the inhabitants of the land." Now, if that wasn't a type of the evangelism that would happen until he returns and all of them were brought back, I don't know what is, but that we were spearheading the bringing of the people as an advance guard before all the children. It was America and Britain that were the evangelists of the world during the pinnacle of the greatness of our nation. And it was the turning from that that has caused that downfall of our morality and success and blessings, right? These are just the facts of how his word says reality will work. It says, "And they came to him," or sorry, we said that. It says, "And we will arm ourselves and go before them until we shall have brought them into their place, and our possessions shall remain in walled cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return to our houses till the children of Israel shall have been distributed, each to his own inheritance. And we will not any longer inherit with them from the other side of Jordan and onwards, because because we have our full inheritance on the side beyond Jordan, eastward." And Moshe said to them, "If you will do according to these words, if you will arm yourselves before Yahuwah for battle, and every one of you will pass over Jordan fully armed before Yahuwah until his enemy be destroyed from before his face, and the land shall be subdued before Yahuwah, then afterwards you shall return, and be guiltless before Yahuwah, as regards Yisrael. And this land shall be to you for a possession before Yahuwah. But if you will not do so, you will sin against Yahuwah, and you shall know your sin when afflictions shall come upon you." And that is indeed what happened, because they didn't keep their word, neither did the other children. They were told to completely wipe out the Canaanim, of which they failed to do. And the things that Yahuwah said would happen to them did because of it, which we will get to in the course of time here. It says, "But if you will not do so, you shall sin against Yahuwah, and you shall know your sin when afflictions shall come upon you, and you shall build for yourselves cities for your store, and folds for your cattle, and you shall do that which proceeds out of your mouth." You keep your word, right? "And the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad spoke to Moshe, saying, Your servants will do as our master commands. Our store and our wives and all our cattle shall be in the cities of Galaad. But your servants will go over all armed and set in order before Yahuwah to battle, as our master says. And Moshe appointed to them Eleazar the Kohen, and Yahushua the son of Nun, and the chiefs of the families of the tribes of Yisrael. And Moshe said to them, if the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad will pass over Yarden with you, every one armed for war before Yahuwah, you shall subdue the land before you, then you shall give to them the land of Galaad for a possession. But if they will not pass over armed with you to war before Yahuwah, then shall you cause to pass over their possessions and their wives and their cattle before you into the land of Canaan, and they shall inherit with you in the land of Canaan. And the sons of Reuben and the sons of Gad answered, saying, whatsoever Yahuwah says to his servants, that will we do. We will go over armed before Yahuwah into the land of Canaan, and you shall give us our inheritance beyond Yarden. And Moshe gave to them, even to the sons of Gad and the sons of Reuben, and to the half tribe of Manasseh of the sons of Yahusaph, the kingdom of Sihon, king of the Amorites, and the kingdom of Og, kingdom of Bashan, or king of Bashan, the land and its cities, with its coasts, the cities of the land round about. And the sons of Gad built Dibon and Adaroth and Aroer and Shofar and Yazer, and they set them up. And Namram and Bethran, strong cities and folds for sheep. And the sons of Reuben built Heshbon and Eliel, or Eliel, and Kiriatham, and Baal Maon. So that was Baal Maon, a particular city that I was reading about from that Phoenician history. It has to do with Mitzrayim or Osiris, as known as Meon at that time. And this was the Lord of Meon, or the house of Meon. It was originally a pagan place from the Canaanim that was destroyed, and then they rebuilt it here. But they named it something else, if I remember correctly. But it says, and Baal Meon surrounded with walls, and Sabamah, sorry, and they called the names of the cities which they built after their own names. And a son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, went to Galaad, and took it, and destroyed the Amorite who dwelt in it. And Moshe gave Galaad to Machir, the son of Manasseh, and he dwelt there. And Yair, the son of Manasseh, went and took their villages, and called them the villages of Yair. And Nebo went and took Kohath and her villages, and called them Neboth after his name. All right. Then we're on chapter 33, and this is the 240 journeys of the Yisraeli, and the Canaanites are to be destroyed. Now, this one, there is actually a gentleman, and I don't remember exactly where it is, but there's a gentleman from, I believe it's the 1800s, that wrote a book about the wanderings of Israel, I think it was called. And he specifically is going over the journeys that they had during their 40 years in the wilderness here, and the significance of what it meant, the meanings of the names and the stories and the events that had happened, kind of putting what you read here and in um, Exodus and Deuteronomy all together in a flowing narrative. I don't remember if I read the book all the way, but I found it very interesting. I thought it was very important as it applied to our times in the wilderness before being brought back in the land in a more fuller sense with the greater exodus that is to come, right? But right here, this is verse 1, chapter 33. It says, "And these are the stages of the children of Yisrael as they went out from the land of Mitzrayim, or Egypt, with their host by the hand of Moshe and Aharon." And Moshe, I find it, they use the Greek here, Moses, and you see Moshe here. So they'll put that correctly, but they won't put Yahushua correctly. Although, just to be clear, even this is a hidden name. When Yahushua foretold that one would come like unto Moshe in all things, he really meant that. And when you look at some of the hidden writings, like what is in the Dead Sea Scrolls, they have one of them. It's not the Testament of Amram, but it's called the Visions of Amram. And just like Louis had a testament, Kohath had something that he wrote, Amram had his visions that he wrote as well. And he was the father of Aharon, Miriam, and Moshe there. When you read about what's in those writings, his youngest son, he never called Moshe, but he called Melech Yahu, or the messenger of Yahuwah, which is literally what he fulfilled in his life, but his name was changed to the one drawn out of the waters. Just as Yahushua's name was hidden and changed, and he was the one drawn out of waters. So very, very prophetic in that way, in almost every sense you can look at it. The more you dig, the more you see. But that's one I wanted to point out there. I think it's always fascinating. This is, and Moshe wrote their removals by their stages by the word of Yahuwah, and these are the stages of their journeying. If you remember, all of the writings had been destroyed by Babylon and then rewritten when Ezra and the scribes had returned, and he was given the Ruach to dictate to them. The reason why this isn't first-person writings from Moshe is because of that. Although there are records of some writings that are in the first person, most of them were dictated just like this that scribes wrote down. And so it's from a narrative outside of the first person point of view for 90% of all of the scriptures there. The only time you see it really like that is when Yahuwah is speaking through foretellers himself to you, right? There might be a few other instances there, but I don't recall them off the top of my head. This is, and they departed from Ramses, which was previously known as Avaris or Abaris, right? Which is it was the city that they inhabited that was originally built by the Canaanites, the shepherd kings that had ruled over in Egypt and suppressed them. But it says they departed from Ramses in the first month on the 15th day of the first month. On the day after the Passover, the children of Yisrael went forth with a high hand before all the Egyptians, or Mitzrayites. And the Mitzrayites buried those that died of them, even all that Yahuwah smote, every firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim. Also, Yahuwah executed vengeance on their mighty ones. And the children of Yisrael departed from Ramses and encamped in Succoth. And they departed from Succoth and encamped in Buthan, which is a part of the wilderness. And they departed from Buthan and encamped at the mouth of Aroth, which is opposite Baal or Beel Siphon, and encamped opposite Migdol. And that's that Migdol is like a high place or a tower. Migdalim are the tall things, the greatness, right? And they departed from before Eroth and crossed the middle of the sea into the wilderness. And they went a journey of 3 days through the wilderness and encamped at Pikire. And they departed from Pikire, and I'm not saying that right, I'm sorry, and came to Elim. And in Elim were 12 fountains of water and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the water. And Irenaeus talks about how that part is a parable that after they escaped out of the deliverance out of bondage and slavery, which was a parable of like the deliverance out of sin and death that our Mashiach delivered us from in his coming, they departed, were went through the waters of immersion, and then after 3 days with a fast, which was inverted later on, where we have to fast before we were immersed now, right? Then they were given pleasure with 12 fountains of water and 70 palms, which was like the emissaries and the taught ones of our Mashiach being sent out to bring the good news. So that's another type where this is the narrative story, and then that was a parable of what would happen later on, right? It says, and they departed from Elim and encamped by the Red Sea. And they departed from the Red Sea and encamped in the wilderness of Sin. And they departed from the wilderness of Sin and encamped in Rapha. And they departed from Rapha and encamped in Elias. Elias. That Rapha there is the place that were inhabited by older generations of Ham's descendants, like the Anak as well. Um, and this is information that you learn from Sanchonithos Phoenician history and from other places that are our scriptural writings. In one of the Septuagint translations, for example, when you go back to the five kings that went to fight against the king of Sodom and Gomorrah, title the king of the Goyim or the king of nations in the Masoretic text is known as title the king of the Hamites. So the king of the nations are the children of Ham that were still in that area. And if you remember, Nimrod was a son of Cush, who was a son of Ham. And they were the ones that were responsible for the building of the tower, the founding of Babylon. And Nimrod went to Nineveh and founded that. His daughter married Eber, and others of his children would be in those areas as well. Not only his children, but Cush's children, and possibly others of Ham's descendants, like I'm mentioning here. And then you also have some of Mitzrayim or Osiris's children, who were known, it mentions in the recognitions of Clement, that he helped to found the Babylonians, Persians, and Egyptians. It's also, there's a lot of information about those things, but I'm trying to help you. If you remember, the land was divided and split into three, but some of them didn't stay in the inheritance that was given to them. They went beyond that. And then if you also keep in mind that there was intermarriage between some of their children, that would account for the different things that you see with the peoples in the different areas around the Middle East there. For anyone who's not familiar, Ararat, as they call it, or the mountains of Iratu, were over by, was it Eastern Turkey, Western Iran? On the border almost is where Noah's Ark landed. And then they went down from there and founded their first cities and kind of spread out. Right here, verse 13, it says, and they departed from Rapha and camped in Elus, right? And they departed from Elus and encamped in Raphidim. Well, that's Raphakah, and this is Raphidim. It says, and there was no water for the people to drink. And they departed from Raphidim and encamped in the wilderness of Sinai. And they departed from the wilderness of Sinai and encamped at the graves of lust. And they departed from the graves of lust and encamped at Azaroth. And they departed from Azaroth and encamped in Rathama. And they departed from Rathama and encamped in Ramon. Ramon means pomegranate. It's also the same word as they get for the chapiter or the capital on the pillars that were built. It's like a pomegranate, and they had pomegranates on it, but it's a related word. I only know that because of the information about the shepherd kings and where they were, the place that it was called, and the false mighty one that they venerated, right? But it all ties together there. It says, and they camped at Ramon Pharez, and they departed from Ramon Pharez and encamped in Libnah. And they departed from Libnah and encamped in Resin. Now, Pharez is a breaker, like Peretz, but so it's the pomegranate, the breaking pomegranate would be the name of the place. But anyways, it says, and they departed from Resin and encamped in Kehelatha, and that's Mekilath. And they departed from Kehelatha, or Meklath, and encamped in Saphar. And they departed from Saphar and encamped in Chardath. And they departed from Chardath and encamped in Mikloth. And I'm sorry about that. If we were doing this and we had time, we would go through and you could look at what these actual words meant. Because you see, this is H2731, and it just gives you the place that it is and where it's located. But it doesn't actually tell you what that word means. So you'd have to go look up the Strong's number for that, the H, right? And then you see that means fear. Charadah. Charad is fear. It's a type of fear, possibly. Yeah. And you'd do that for each one so that you'd get a sense of what he's talking about. But most of these things, just like the names of the Canaanim that they're supposed to eradicate, it all has to do with types of emotions or terror or other things that are not beneficial, where his instruments of judgment, truth, and right are to eradicate such things. Also, a parable. I'm hoping that that will make more sense, but we, I haven't had the time to go through this and look them all up right now, and that would be rather convoluted to do it. So I'm sorry about that, but we can do that sometime for sure. Or anyone who has the inclination can do that. I'm sure you can find studies that where people have already gone and done those things as well. That book I mentioned, I believe, covers the meanings of the names as he goes through the narrative. It says, and they departed from Charadath, and encamped in Mikloth. And they departed from Mikloth and encamped in Ka-Ta'ath. And they departed from Ka-Ta'ath and encamped in Terath. And they departed from Terath and encamped in Mathaka. And they departed from Mathaka and encamped in Salmona. And they departed from Salmona and encamped in Masaruth, And they departed from Masaruth and encamped in Benea, they say. And they departed from Benea and encamped in the mountain Gadgad. And they departed from the mountain Gadgad and encamped in Etbatha. And they departed from Etabatha, and encamped in Ebrona. And they departed from Ebrona and encamped in Gizion Geber. And they departed from Gizion Geber and encamped in the wilderness of Sin. And they departed from the wilderness of Sin and encamped in the wilderness of Paran, or Pharan. This is Kadesh. And they departed from Kadesh and encamped in Mount Or, near the land of Edom. And Aharon the Kohen went up by the command of Yahuwah and died there in the 40th year of their departure, or the departure of the children of Israel from the land of Mitzrayim, in the 5th month, on the 1st of the month. Which I don't know of any significance of this particular day. His father or forefather Louis was born on the 1st of the 1st month, if I remember correctly, and Yahusuf was born on the 1st of the 4th month. But I think there are some events that have happened on that same day that might have something to do with it. But remember, his having to die was to make propitiation a type of their being the shedders of blood, right? And the murder, uh, not intentionally or not maliciously of a man. You're in a city of refuge and kept outside of your own place until the death of the Kohen. That's a type and picture of the things where the people were all apostate at that time, and now his dying makes way for them to be able to go home or to be brought in. So, and Aharon the Kohen went up. I already read that one, sorry. It says Aharon was 123 years old when he died in Mount Or. And Arad rather, the Canaanim king, he too dwelt in the land of Canaan. Having heard when the children of Israel were entering, they then they departed from Mount Or and encamped in Salmona. And they departed from Salmona and encamped in Phino. And they departed from Phino and encamped in Oboth. And they departed from Oboth and encamped in Ai, or the Greek is Gai. And the ayin can make the G sound, so it's quite possible that was a G beforehand. It doesn't always do that, but Gomorrah is another one where the ayin makes the G sound at the beginning. It says, on the other side of the borders of Moab. And they departed from Ai and encamped in Dibon, Gad. And they departed from Dibon, Gad, and encamped in Gelmon, Deblathaim. And they departed from Gelmon, Deblathaim, and encamped on the mountains of Abarim, over against Nebo. And they departed from the mountains of Abarim, and encamped on the west of Moab, at the Yarden by Jericho. And they encamped by Yarden between Azamoth as far as Beth el Belsa to the west of Moab. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe at the west of Moab by Yarden at Jericho, saying, speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, you are to pass over the Yarden into the land of Canaan, and you shall destroy all that dwell in the land before your face. And you shall abolish their high places, and all their molten images you shall destroy, and you shall demolish all their pillars. And you shall destroy all the inhabitants of the land, and you shall dwell in it, for I have given their land to you for an inheritance. And you shall inherit their land according to your tribes. To the greater number you shall give the larger possession, and to the smaller you shall give the less possession. To whatsoever a man's name shall go forth, there shall there shall be his. You shall inherit according to the tribes of your families. But if you will not destroy the dwellers in the land from before you, then you shall come to pass, or then it shall come to pass, that whomsoever of them you shall leave shall be thorns in your eyes, and darts in your sides, and they shall be enemies to you on the land on which you shall dwell. Now, that's an interesting thing, because you remember there was a thorn that was given to Shaul, wasn't there? A thorn in his side. The fiery darts of the enemy are also mentioned in the renewed covenant. I think these are explained more fully in what is called the Shepherd of Hermas, when he has the commands and parables and visions that he's given. And it's talked about what kind of messengers are given to what people for what purposes, if you recall. And if you don't know, we have already read those on the YouTube, or if you'd rather, the Shepherd of Hermas is freely available on the internet. I highly recommend reading it. But it says, and they shall be enemies to you on the land on which you shall dwell. And it shall come to pass that as I had determined to do to them, so will I do to you. Just like he did with King Shaul when he did not do what was commanded him against the people that were under the ban, right? It happened to him instead. So, chapter 34 says, the borders of the land, the names of the men which shall divide the land. And these things right here, I don't honestly know if they have a parallel specifically in anything to do with our lives today. When we are reintroduced into the land, the allotment's going to be different. The land area is going to be different. There won't be adversarial people in it that will need to be, excuse me, the ones that are like the Canaanim at the time that he returns and the judgment is going to be against them. It's repent like the ones that made a covenant with Yahushua or get wiped out. There is no middle ground there. And after that time, you will have shalom. Satan will be locked away for 1,000 years, right? I know there's some people believe that that thing has already happened and we're in Satan's little season, but that is not possible. And if you only look at the Bible itself, you can see that when our Messiah returns, he will not yield his kingdom to another, ever. So there isn't going to be a time where he isn't reigning again in a land. At one point, enemies will surround that area, and that's when it will be consumed by fire, and we'll have the new creation. But that's a time in the future where he's still reigning and supreme in the world, and everybody's going to know. So it's not like he's going to be hidden in some place and people are going to be thinking that it could have not happened yet. That's a delusion. Every eye will see, everyone will know. There's too many things that are in the plain text there that go against that you have to just cast away and ignore to believe that kind of thing. But that's the problem with searching for interpretations of stuff in the internet instead of reading the Bible. All right, or reading scriptures and studying to show yourself approved in things that he said to do. Right here it says, and Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, charge the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, you are entering into the land of Canaan, and it shall be to you for an inheritance, the land of Canaan with its boundaries. And your southern side shall be from the wilderness of Sin to the border of Edom, and your border southward shall extend on the side of the salt sea eastward. And your border shall go round you from the south to the ascent of Acrabin, and shall proceed by Anak, and the going forth of it shall be southward to Kadesh Barnea. And it shall go forth to the village of Arad, and shall proceed by Asmona. And the border shall compass from Asmona to the river of Mitzrayim. I want you to see the border of the land there was the Nile River. So all that strip of land there on the eastern side of the Nile was part of Shem's territory. And that was known in antiquity. It was known by secular histories in antiquity. They called it the land of Arabia, even though it was on the other side of the sea there, or that larger body of water. But it was never counted as part of Egypt. The Canaanites that took the land of Canaan also dwelt there, and they went over the Nile and were conquering and suppressing their brother as the shepherd kings that were later run off when Egypt took control of that section for a while. And then it had been contested here and there since then. But from its founding, it had belonged to the sons of Shem, and it's part of the possession of what was an inheritance from Abraham. It was part of where Goshen is and where the pasture lands there are for his people. It says, and the sea shall be the termination, meaning the Mediterranean Sea. Or I'm sorry, the sea below to the south, maybe. And you shall have your border on the west. The great sea shall be the boundary. This shall be to you the border on the west, and that would be the Mediterranean there, sorry, known as the Great Sea. And this shall be your northern border from the great sea. You shall measure to yourselves by the side of the mountain, and you shall measure to yourselves the mountain from Mount Hor at the entering in to Hamath, and the termination of it shall be the coasts of Saradak. And the border, now you have the mountains and the northern border there. You have Turkey and you have the Black Sea. I don't know what coast they're talking about beyond that. But when they said it's from the Nile to the Euphrates goes up into the Caucasus Mountains there. That's the geography that we call it. Whether this is meaning the exact same things, I'm not entirely sure. And the border shall go out from Diphorna, and its termination shall be at Arsenine, and this shall be your border from the north. And you shall measure to yourselves the eastern border from Arsenine to Sephamar, and the border shall go down from Sephamar to Bela, eastward to the fountains, and the border shall go down from Bela behind the sea, Chinnereth, eastward. And the border shall go down to Yarden, and the termination shall be the salt sea. This shall be your land, and its borders round about. And Moshe charged the children of Israel, saying, This, the land which you shall inherit by lot. So this part seems to be less than the total land that was originally given, and the borders do not seem to go into Turkey there. But that was the full allotment, if you remember. We've covered that in a few other places before, but I'm sure we'll get to it again. They never fully had all that land, except for twice that I'm aware of, at least partially, during the reign of Shalomo and Dawid, when he subdued all his enemies round about. And then again, in the time after the Maccabean period, when the sons of the Maccabees were reigning. And I believe it was Alexander Janus who became king and Kohen, and he was the one to expand the borders to its largest extent at that time. And then it was piecemeal taken away by Rome as they got more and more involved. It says, and Moshe charged the children of Yisrael, saying, This is the land which you shall inherit by lot, even as Yahuwah commanded us to give it to the 9 tribes and the half tribe of Manasseh. And this is mentioned specifically, the 9.5 tribes is mentioned by second Baruch, or in Baruch 1 or 2, possibly both of them, but he was addressing some of his writings directly to the northern kingdom, of which he called them the 9.5 tribes, because there was only Yahuda and some of Benjamin, Yahuda, and some of Louis that were left in the land with the southern kingdom. Not all of them, as is mistakenly believed by many. The ones that stayed true to Yahuwah repented and returned, but the ones that were apostate were already going out places and doing things that they shouldn't way before then. Even the grandson of Moshe, as we will see, was helping with the idolatry of Dan. And that was, again, types of things that would go on later on. But he says, he charged them, saying, This is the land you shall inherit by lot, even as Yahuwah commanded us to give to the 9.5 tribes, and the half tribe of Manasseh. For the tribe of the children of Reuben and the tribe of the children of Gad have received according to their families, and the half tribe of Manasseh have received their inheritances. 2 tribes and half a tribe have received their inheritance beyond Yarden by Jericho from the south eastwards. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, The the names of the men who shall divide the land to you for an inheritance. So these are the men called by name, a type and picture, right? Eleazar the Kohen and Yahushua the son of Nun, the son of life, right? And you shall take one ruler from each tribe to divide the land to you by lot. And these are the names of the men of the tribe of Yahudah: Caleb the son of Yephanun; of the tribe of Shimon, Salamiel the son of Simeud; of the tribe of Benjamin, Eldad the son of Keshlon; of the tribe of Dan the prince, Bakir the son of Igli; of the sons of Yahusuf, of the tribe of the sons of Manasseh, the prince was Aniel the son of Sufi; of the tribe of the sons of Ephraim, the prince was Kamuel the son of Sabbathan; of the tribe of Zebulun, the prince was Elzaphan the son of Pharnak; of the tribe of the sons of Yishakar, the prince was Phealtiel the son of Uzzah; of the tribe of the children of Asher, the prince was Achior the son of Selemi; of the tribe of Naphtali, the prince was Phadael the son of Yamiud. These did Yahuwah command to distribute to the children of Israel in the land of Canaan. All right, just one moment. All right, we're on chapter 35, and this is about the 48 cities for the Lui'im with their suburbs, or the 2,000 cubit radius around the area which is allotted to them for pasturing their cattle and whatnot, and farming and whatever they need to do. 6 of them are to be cities of refuge. The laws of murder, no satisfaction for murder. And we were just talking about that. You can see the principle behind why Aharon had to die here. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe to the west of Moab by Yarden, near Jericho, saying, Give orders to the children of Yisrael, and they shall give to the Lui'im cities to dwell in from the lot of their possession. And they shall give to the Lui'im the suburbs of the cities round about them. And the cities shall be for them to dwell in, and their enclosures shall be for their cattle and all their beasts. And the suburbs of the cities which you shall give to the Lui'im shall be from the wall of the city, and outwards 2,000 cubits round about. And you shall measure outside the city, and that would be a quote unquote Sabbath day's journey, what you're allowed to walk outside of your own city. And you shall measure outside the city on the east side 2,000 cubits, and on the south side 2,000 cubits, and on the west side 2,000 cubits, and on the north side 2,000 cubits. And your city shall be in the midst of this, and the suburbs of the cities. And you shall give the cities to the Lui'im, the 6 cities of refuge, which you shall give for the slayer to flee thither, and to flee there, right? And in addition to these, 42 cities. You shall give to the Lui'im in all 48 cities, them and their suburbs. And as for the cities which you shall give out of the possession of the children of Israel, from those that have much you shall give much, and from those that have less you shall give less. They shall give to their cities, or of their cities, to the Lui'im, each one according to his inheritance, which they shall inherit. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Remember, The Lui'im were those that were joined unto him, and they're supposed to be the ministers of the people. So they're given cities all over the land so they can be lights to the nation. Like you'd have assemblies all over the world. It's a type of thing. It wasn't a perfect representation. There's different systems, different laws, but it was a type one and the other, if you can see it. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, You are to cross over the Jordan into the land of Canaan, and you shall appoint to yourselves cities. They shall be to you cities of refuge for the slayer to flee to, every one who has killed another unintentionally. And it's the intent that is supposed to be searched out in a trial, right? And the cities shall be to you places of refuge from the avenger of blood, and the slayer shall not die until he stands before the congregation for judgment. So you have a right to trial by jury, and that's right there. And the cities shall, and especially for a capital or other infamous crime, that's part of the Constitution, right? And the cities which you shall assign, the 6 cities, shall be places of refuge for you. You shall assign 3 cities on the other side of Jordan, and you shall assign 3 cities on or in the land of Canaan. And it shall be a place of refuge for the children of Yisrael, and for the stranger, and for him that sojourns among you. These cities shall be for a place of refuge, for every one to flee there who has killed a man unintentionally. And if he should smite him with an iron instrument, and the man should die, he is a murderer. Let the murderer by all means be put to death. And if he should smite him with a stone from his hand, whereby a man may die, and he die, he is a murderer. Just like Cain, right? Let the murderer by all means be put to death. And if you remember, the land is not cleansed until the blood of the one who's done the evil is shed, because he shed man's blood. And if he should smite him with an instrument of wood from his hand, whereby he may die, and he die, he is a murderer. Let the murderer by all means be put to death. The avenger of blood himself shall slay the murderer. Whensoever he shall meet him, he shall slay him. Now, a lot of people attribute wrongdoings to Dawid and others, which I find to be reprehensible. Anyone who's the anointed of Yahuwah, who was to do something Yahuwah hated, his Ruach would leave him, and an evil spirit would indwell in them. You have Shaul as an example. You have Simon the magician as an example. You have the exhortations in Scripture that talk about it. Abraham couldn't be pleasing to him and be doing evil things at the same time. It's not possible. Same thing with Dawid. He could not be doing evil to another, like killing a man for killing Shaul, when he was only fulfilling the Torah. It wasn't vengeance, or he wasn't doing that. He was requiting the anointed of Yahuwah, the violence done to him. And that's how every man is supposed to behave towards any man, because we all have Mashiach in us, just some of us are not cognizant of it. And that's exactly what Kepha talks about in the recognitions as well, if you recall. But we'll continue here. So it says, and if he should thrust him through enmity, or cast anything upon him from an ambuscade, like an ambush, and the man should die, or if he have smitten him with his hand through anger, and the man should die, let the man that smote him be put to death by all means. He is a murderer. Let the murderer by all means be put to death. The avenger of blood shall slay the murderer when he meets him. But if he should thrust him suddenly, not through enmity, or cast anything upon him not from an ambuscade or ambush, or smite with a stone whereby a man may die unawares, and it should fall upon him, and he should die, but he was not his enemy, nor sought to hurt him, then the assembly shall judge between the smiter and the avenger of blood, according to these judgments. And the congregation shall rescue the slayer from the avenger of blood, and the congregation shall restore him to his city of refuge, whether he fled for refuge, whither he fled for refuge, and he shall dwell there till the death of the high Kohen, whom they anointed with the set apart oil. But if the slayer should in any wise go out beyond the bounds of the city whither he fled for refuge, and the avenger of blood should find him without the bounds of the city of his refuge, and the avenger of blood should kill the slayer, he is not guilty. For he ought to have remained in the city of refuge till the high Kohen died, and after the death of the high Kohen, the slayer shall return to the land of his possession. And these things shall be to you for an ordinance of judgment throughout your generations in all your dwellings. It doesn't change just because we're kicked out of the land. And when the people repented, after they were taken out, a section of the northern kingdom repented to keep it. They were delivered from Assyrian captivity and able to have liberty, even though they were outside of the land. They were obedient to his word. And that's what we all ought to be, just like the common law of our country is literally the fulfillment of this very thing, the principles of Scripture actually functioning in reality. It says, whosoever kills a man, or that's what it should be, but right now we're susceptible to Babylonian Roman code because we will not be subject to our maker. You only have two kingdoms, right? We've talked about that before as well. Yes?
Water and energy,
Oh,
please.
sorry about that. Um, it says, whoever kills a man, you shall slay the murderer on the testimony of witnesses, and one witness shall not testify against a soul that he should die. And you shall not accept ransoms for life from a murderer who is worthy of death, for he shall be surely put to death. You shall not accept a ransom, his fleeing to the city of refuge, so that he should again dwell in the land until the death of the high Kohen. So shall you not pollute with murder the land in which you dwell. And that's another reason why he had to die, right? There's a picture with the high Kohen having to die. The type here with Aharon after the people broke the covenant. And so with his fulfillment and having to do so because of our violation of it, it is the ultimate propitiation. There is no other that we have to look to for deliverance from the things that we've done. But it says, so shall you not pollute with murder the land in which you dwell, for this blood pollutes the land, and the land shall not be purged from the blood shed upon it, but by the blood of him that shed it. And you shall not defile the land whereon you dwell, on which I dwell in the midst of you. For I am Yahuwah dwelling in the midst of the children of Yisrael. And his visible sign that he was there, the esteem of the cloud, or the Shekinah glory as it's called in English there, but his presence being visibly seen was eventually taken and was no longer there because they would not keep those injunctions. I believe we have time for one more here. This is 36. Yeah. This will be the last one as well, and then we can continue with Deuteronomy tomorrow. Or, sorry, next week. So, the inconvenience of the inheritance of daughters is remedied by marrying in their own tribes, lest the inheritance should be removed from the tribe. The daughters of Zelophehad marry their father's brothers' sons. And this is the answer to that issue that they had that we'd already covered, where they wanted to have possession. Their father had no male heir, only daughters, and they were given permission to have a possession in the inheritance of Manasseh. But this is how they had to do it. They had to marry within the tribe so that it would not be given outside of it. It says, and the heads of the tribes of the sons of Galaad, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, of the tribe of the sons of Yahusaph drew near and spoke before Moshe and before Eleazar the Kohen and before the heads of the houses of the families of the children of Yisrael. And they said, Yahuwah commanded our master to render the land of inheritance by lot to the children of Israel, and Yahuwah appointed our master to give the inheritance of Zelophehad, our brother, to his daughters, and they will become wives in one of the tribes of the children of Yisrael. So their inheritance shall be taken away from the possession of our fathers, and shall be added to the inheritance of the tribe into which the women shall marry, and shall be taken away from the portion of our inheritance. And if there shall be a release of the children of Israel, then shall their inheritance be added to the inheritance of the tribe into which the women marry, and their inheritance shall be taken away from the inheritance of our family's tribe. And Moshe charged the children of Israel by commanding, or by the commandment of Yahuwah, saying, Thus says the tribe of the children of Yahusaph, this the thing which Yahuwah has appointed the daughters of Zelophehad, saying, Let them marry where they please, only let them marry of their father's tribe. So shall not the inheritance of the children of Israel go about from tribe to tribe, for the children of Israel shall steadfastly continue each in the inheritance of his family's tribe, which continued until they were taken out of the land. It was not continued after the Yahudim came back out of captivity. They possessed areas that were not originally given to them, as far as I'm aware. It says, and whatever daughter is heiress to a property of the tribes of the children of Israel, women shall be married each one to her father's tribe, that the sons of Israel may each inherit the property of his father's tribe. And the inheritance shall not go about from one tribe to another, but the children of Israel shall steadfastly continue each in his own inheritance. As Yahuwah commanded Moshe, so did they to the daughters of Zelophehad. So Tirzah and Hoglah, or Eglah, and Milcah, and Nuah, and Ma'alah, the daughters of Zelophehad, married their cousins. They were married of the tribe of Manasseh, of the sons of Yahusaph, and their inheritance was attached to the tribe of their father's family. These the commandments and the ordinances and the judgments which Yahuwah commanded by the hand of Moshe at the west of Moab, at Yarden by Jericho. All right, and I want to thank you all for your time and for your patience with us. We are now finished with the book of the Midbar Numbers, and we will continue next week with Deuteronomy, or Devarim, the words or matters that he spoke right here, which is really a recapitulation of everything they had been through with Moshe before he passes. It's one of the only references we have in the Masoretic text of something that you should be able to see in Exodus as well, and you can when you look at the Samaritan Pentateuch and the Dead Sea Scrolls, for example. But when Yahushua was speaking on Mount Sinai, giving the commandments, and he was called by his father's name at the time, he gave them the foretelling right there that he would come, the one like unto Moshe that they should listen to. It's mentioned in Deuteronomy, but you don't find a second reference to it because it was inconveniently removed from the Exodus account of when the commandments were given. However, like I said, in the Samaritan Pentateuch and the Dead Sea Scrolls, possibly other areas, you can see that very thing word for word, and it's pretty amazing. Um, it's just another confirmation of the truth and the things that he actually spoke with his mouth that the people had heard. But thank you all for your time. You have a great rest of your Sabbath, a great Shavua Tova week ahead, and we will talk to you later. Shalom.